Greetings. Let's talk about how to install one of these bumpers on a Toyota Tacoma. So that's what it's going to look like when it's complete, and we're going to get into it. So first things first, these are the stock fog lights, and they look like they're 18 years old because they are. Actually closer to 19, let's be real. So we're just going to use a kit off Amazon to clean these up first, because we're not just putting this bumper on, we're refurbishing the things connected to the bumper and around the bumper as we go through this process to just try and do a good job while we're in here. So that's what we're doing here, just following the basic directions of this kit. And looking at this footage, it's upside down, but that doesn't really apply when you're looking at round lights anyway, so no big deal. Make sure you do wear gloves and PPE with this type of chemical, because it is not something you want on your skin or your eyes, basically anywhere near your body. Okay, so those lights are looking a lot better, and they're ready to go back in the new bumper. Okay, old bumper, plastic parts we just cut off with a Sawzall. Don't have that on video. This aluminum structure we're taking off with a 14mm socket. And the electric wrench really helps speed this up. So if you got one, use it. If you don't, you'll be fine. It's just going to take longer. I went ahead and lubricated these bolts with some WD-40 before taking them off. And I did that because stripping these bolts would be really bad. It would make this job a lot harder. Okay, you can see a little bend in this piece because this truck's gone off the road a couple times. So, came off no problem. Inspecting the bolts, they look good. Alright. Now, we're going to move on to the next part of the process. I don't have any particular order on this, just trying to work on things as I go. Bonus points if you saw the washers glued to the crack in the frame in the last shot. If you missed it though, just press that left arrow on your keyboard until you get back to it if you want to check it out. Okay, now we're putting in the assembly for the stock headlights. And this is a spot where we're going to use some Loctite, because all these screws we're putting together to get this bumper together could fall out. You can also see we've put the bull ends on the bumper with those 3 bolts to the left of us. So you're going to do that first. And the reason this bumper comes in pieces to make it smaller is then it fits in one box and they can ship it cheaper. So that's how the cookie crumbles on this guy. Okay, we're doing red Loctite on this bulb assembly. And as I thought about it more, it made sense to switch to blue Loctite. So that's what we're going to do on the next one, but you live and learn. The red Loctite is Loctite you can get off with heat. Heat near a plastic assembly is not going to work really well anyway, so blue's probably super good enough. Okay, so this guy's almost done. And note that I'm putting the Loctite on right at the end here. So this is the technique, because that's where the threads are coming in contact with the nut, which is welded into that piece of metal there. So all these things are not in the poorly written manual. And if you do them, your bolts are going to stick in their nuts a lot longer. Alright, now that we've got that bolt glued into that nut, we can move to the other side and do the same thing with blue Loctite. Blue doesn't require heat to get off, but it's not going to vibrate off either. So just think of it as a slightly less strong thread glue, or thread fastener as they like to say. So getting these stock bulbs back on the other side. Again, it makes sense now why we cleaned them before putting them on. You can also see some padding we put under this bumper to keep it from scratching on the pavement. Yeah, it's meant to get used, and it's got a pretty good durable paint on it, but we don't want to add any scuffs to this new thing if we don't need to. Okay, on to this piece of the assembly, using red Loctite for it, and we'll get that on lickety split. Using a clamp to hold this in place helps. At least that's what I found. All right, looking good. All right, more Loctite. I love how this tastes in coffee as a sweetener. Just kidding. Wear gloves, wear PPE. Don't ever eat or drink this stuff. This probably got a whole bunch of stuff you don't want in your body. All right, that bolt's placed in its nut with glue, and we are gonna move on to the next part of the assembly. So I'm reading the manual on my phone here. Not really good, but it comes with a QR code in the box you're gonna get, and you can check that out. So I'm not tensioning these fully yet because it says something in the manual about putting these on and not tensioning them fully until the bumper is mounted to the vehicle. All right, next, moving on to the license plate assembly. This we're using red Loctite on because we don't ever want this license plate to fall off. All right, now that that's done, we'll put the license plate itself on with blue Loctite because this may come off if we move states or get a new license plate for some reason. All right, now that that's on, we can move on to our next thing, which is cutting these plastic fender protectors out with the Sawzall. Try not to scratch the vehicle too bad, but hey, if it's got as much rust on it as mine does, well, you probably need to paint it anyway. Here's the other side. Got that done. Okay, now we're doing some examination of these connectors for the lights. They were so hard to get off, I just pulled the lights out themselves by twisting. But we're going to give those some love too before we're done here. Alright, so we got the light off the cable and screwed into the bulb. And now we are doing some wire brushing of all this surface rust. I'm going to get all that off because we are prepping to paint. We want this frame to last a long time. So now we got the rust off. We will wash it with soap and water, and then water to rinse off the soap. Get it nice and clean so that paint gets some really good adhesion. So now that it's been washed, we'll blow dry it with the blower, and then we'll use some liquid electric tape to reseal these connectors because they look like they've seen some better days and may not be as watertight as they used to be. All right, now we're getting this driver's side. We want a lot, but not too much, just like that. Time for paint. This is just a generic can of Rust-Oleum. If there's better paint for this type of application, please put that in the comments below. I don't pretend to be an expert on this. Now, these holes in this piece of bumper protection don't line up with any of the bolts, so I just put it on like this. If you think there's a better way to put this on, please put that in the comments below. All right, here we go. Mounting the bumper for the first time with safety boots on. My wife is extremely strong, which is what you need in a person helping you lift this big piece of metal onto those 6 bolts. Now, you may only have to put this on one time if you learn from the mistakes I'm going to show you in this video, because we assembled this with, oh thank goodness I used blue Loctite on that and not red. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This front grille goes in with these snap connectors. You can, and the original metal screws, so you can find those on Amazon if you need them. Don't know where I'm going to find a connector like that. Here's what the bumper looks like the first time we put it on, and your finished product should look a lot like this. Okay, so what did we miss? What do we have left? Well, there's the skid plate that goes on the bottom, and then we need to tighten these screws, of course, and I needed a 5/8 deep socket for that. And then, of course, we want to paint our bolts so that if they ever move with a painting pen, we can see that easily and change that, get some tension on them. Don't want this falling off on the highway. And then I got this new stick of Loctite to put all these bolts in. About to make another mistake here, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. See if you can guess. Oh, this is it. Never, ever, ever use an electric drill or screwdriver in this case to put those bolts in, because once I got all these bolts in, well, I realized I missed a piece of the assembly, the one that holds the winch plate. It's not in there, and I can't get the bolts off because I over tightened 2 of them. So after a good chunk of time with an angle grinder, I got those bolts off and went to work trying to get this plate on the bumper, and I couldn't. I tried and tried, and it was frustrating, to be quite honest. Here's another angle of me trying to get it in there, and I realized I was going to have to take it off to get it on. So that's what I did. Took the bumper off again, put these bolts in one at a time, and this led me to another mistake. As I was tightening all 4 of these bolts, I was pulling this frame together, and the bolt holes where it goes on to the frame of the truck are no longer in alignment because they were closer together. So what happened when my wife, who's extremely strong, way stronger than me, lifted this up with me, we realized we couldn't get the bumper onto the frame because the bolt holes were misaligned. And that was tough, right? I thought it was going to be super easy, do it with my Birkenstocks on, and I was like, no, this is going to be really hard. So I went and got some boots on just in case this thing was going to fall off. This was when I realized we needed to take the bumper off and loosen these bolts and try putting it back on, and then tightening them. Once again, thankful for blue Loctite that hadn't dried yet. Okay, putting the bumper on for the 3rd time, or 2nd time, 3rd attempt. Still not fitting it the way we'd like to, but it's very, very close. So in this case, we hook the bumper on the bolts on one side of the frame, and we put a nut on so that it will not fall off. Probably a better way to do this, and if you know that, put it in the comments below. Could be as simple as leaving all these assembly members loose until it's on the frame and then tightening them. Okay, so that's super close. Not going on. Fortunately, we have this 40-pound rock bar, big bar of steel we can use as a pry tool. So that is going to become the plan. All right, so we got the rock bar in, down low, prying off the suspension, not the radiators, and the bumper hooked on the other set of nuts. So now we're going to just kind of tap it into place. Okay, that's not working. So we're going to have to try prying again. Don't want to force these on. Don't want to strip these threads. All right, we got the rock bar in place. Prying. Oh, bingo. Finally. All right, let's thread some nuts on, tighten them up, and get this job done. So once I got the bumper on for the 3rd time, I went back and rewatched the parts of my video that showed the rest of the completion process that was right, like putting the rest of the skid plate on, putting the lights back in, and then we were good to go. In any case, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching, and we will see you around.